2, we've been solving with multiplication and division on equations. Now we're going to look at the inequalities and what do we do with those. Okay? So part of this is just going to be review, and then like I said, we're going to include one new rule. Now, on here, I'm just asking you to solve. We're not going to review a bunch of graphing because most of you are doing really well with that, but you will be graphing again on tonight's homework. Okay? So make sure you read directions on tonight's homework. Okay? All right, so on number 1 here, someone tell me, how do we solve this inequality on number 1? Kevin, start us off.
You times by -6.
Yeah, awesome. If this says n divided by 6, so we're going to multiply both sides by 6, and he went ahead and said, let's go ahead and multiply by -6 to get rid of both parts. And I agree with that completely. Okay? So let's multiply both sides by -6. So those cancel. Now, this is what we just started talking about during homework, okay? Anytime you multiply or divide by a negative number, I don't care if my answer is negative, anytime you move a negative number from one side to the other with multiplication and division, you have to flip your inequality symbol, all right? So this from less than equal is going to become greater than or equal. And then what is 8 times -6? -48, and that's going to be your answer. Okay? So again, multiplying by -6, that flips the inequality symbol. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at number 2. All right, what do you guys think here on number 2?
Multiply by 8 over 3.
Okay, multiply by 8. If you would have said multiply by reciprocal and do 8/3 and do it one step, you could have done that as well. But a lot of you guys are wanting to multiply by 8 first, and that's fine, okay? So we're going to multiply both sides by 8 so that those cancel. So we have a 3 and a t left. And I have a -40 on the right-hand side. Now, does my inequality symbol need to flip here? No. Alexis, why did you say no? Good, you're multiplying by a +8. Okay, so the sign doesn't flip. I don't care what my answer is. I just care if we multiply or divide by a negative number. All right, so now what are we going to do?
Divide by 3.
Multiply by 3? Divide. Good. So let's divide everything by 3. Okay, so t, again, we're dividing by a positive, so my sign stays the same. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just leave it -40 over 3. If you want to divide it and call it -13.3, kind of repeating there, that is fine. Okay, I would accept either one of these answers. Okay, now the question came up last period. They said, okay, how would we graph this guy? If you gave me this guy, how do we put that on a number line? And I gave them 2 options. Option 1, come up with a decimal and stick the decimal in the number line, like we did yesterday. Okay, option 2, which some of you may have been taught in junior high, is you can just put -40 over 3, and then -41 over 3, and -39 over 3. You could do that. So you're still just counting by ones, it's just you leave the 3's on the bottom. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you wanted to do a number line like that, that would be fine. Now, if you just want to make it a decimal and work it, that's fine too. Okay, I'm fine with either one. All right? All right. Number 3. How are we going to solve number 3? What are we going to do here? Okay, James, what do you got?
Divide by -12 on this side.
Good. Divide by -12. So those cancel. Now, I divide by -12. Do I flip my inequality symbol?
Yes.
Yes. Very good, guys. Now, 15/12 reduces to 5/4. Good job. Divide both of them by 3. Okay, so we are dividing. Divide by 3 here, divide by 3 here, okay? So that's how we're getting the -5/4. Now, if you stuck at your calculator and got -1.25, of course, I would take that as well, okay? All right, does anybody have a question on that? Okay, so again, we divided by -12, the sign needs to flip. Okay? All right, last problem here before we write down our rule. Okay, Ellie, what are we going to do on this one?
Divide by 6.
Ellie, does my symbol flip?
No.
No, very good. So we have R, we have the greater than symbol, and what is -42 divided by 6?
-7.
-7.
Doesn't
Okay.
the R have to be on the left side?
Yeah, you
Okay,
said-
so what would I do then, Emmanuel, to fix that?
You just flip it.
Yep, so just rewrite R less than -7, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have a question on that?
Mm-mm.
Yes.
Don't you just flip when you're graphing?
Normally we're just regraphing. Both of these answers are accepted. I
Okay.
mean, these are both correct answers. It's just we do this step so that we graph correctly. Okay? Anybody else? Okay, so our rule. When you multiply or divide by a negative number, flip the inequality symbol. Okay, so when you multiply or divide by a negative number, flip the inequality symbol. All right, let's flip over. We got last problem on the back to do. Okay. All right, so this one, of course, we have to have a word problem. Okay. So define a variable, write an inequality, solve, and write your solution using a complete sentence. Okay. So Mount K, I don't even know the actual, I don't know how to pronounce this correctly. Okay, so Mount K in Malaysia has the greatest concentration of wild orchids on Earth. Orchid's just a flower. It contains more than 750 species, or about 1/4 of all orchid species in Malaysia. How many orchid species are there in Malaysia? Okay, so let's start with defining a variable. What are we looking for here? Okay, so number of species of orchids or amount of orchids. Okay, so I'm going to put like M. I don't want to use O because then that looks like my zeros. Okay, so amount of orchid species. And if you want to put in Malaysia, you can. Okay? All right. So let's start with the first part here. More than 750 species. Okay, so if I have 750, more than 750, can I equal 750? No, if I have more than, it's going to be more. So if I'm thinking about 750, 750 is going to be my smallest number, right? 750 is the smallest because I'm going to have more than that. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, let's read the second part. It says about 1/4 of all orchid species. How do we write that? Emma?
1/4 M.
Very good. 1/4. Now, guys, keep in mind, 1/4 of. What's that word of mean? Multiply. So it's even telling you to multiply if you don't remember, okay? If you don't know what to do. So if I'm looking here, I'm going to have 1/4 M. All right, so now, what do we do to solve this? Good, multiply both sides by 4. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this guy by 4. If you want to put 4 over 1, you can do that. So you just see that the 4s will cancel. All right, and multiply this side by 4. Okay, so that being said, 4 times 750. Very good, 3,000. Okay, so now we need to write a sentence. What's my sentence going to look like here? Okay, she says there are 3,000 types of orchid species in
There are
Malaysia.
more than.
More than, very good. Okay, we have to include the more than part. Okay, so there are more than 3,000 orchid species. In Malaysia. Okay? So there's my 4 steps. Define a variable, write an inequality, solve, and then write a sentence. Make sure we're including things like less than, more than, at least. Okay? All right, does anybody have any questions for me? Okay, that concludes our notes for today. Homework.